What I keep being too caught up by all my demons, lost without that love.
So we talked in the last episode about becoming Dennis Mortimer and becoming the player that consequently saw leave Coventry City and join Aston Villa. So when you joined Aston Villa in 1975, you're joining really another massive club nowadays. I know you said that football wasn't as publicised as it is now, but surely going to the club, seeing the club for the first time, what were your predominant emotions surrounding that event? Because I'm sure you were quite, not necessarily intimidated, but in awe of the stature of the club.
I think what you got to what people got to remember, Liam, is that Aston Villa had been in the wilderness from the point of view of not playing in the first division. My whole career up to that point had been at Coventry City, who'd been in the first division. So by the time I reached Aston Villa, yeah, from my point of view, I knew very little about them.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of those reasons would be that, you know, living in Coventry, we were sort of to the left of Birmingham, so we didn't sort of. I don't think we sort of mattered too much towards the Birmingham Argus. We had our own Coventry Telegraph Pink, and in that Pink, it was mainly about Coventry City. So you didn't read much about what else was going on. It was like being in a different world. Yeah, although, you know, there's Birmingham with like 5 or 6 teams playing in and around it. We're in and around it, but we're not actually sort of linked to it in that way. But the fact that I'd never come across Villa on my radar from the point of view of playing. I'd never played against Aston Villa. So I'd never been to Villa Park. Yeah, so you know, coming to Villa Park and looking at the ground, obviously now my first thoughts of moving was as well, you know, so when I looked at the league table, I knew Villa had just come up that season. So I looked at the league table, and I think we were both on the same points at the time. Yeah, so I'm just thinking to myself, okay, then where am I going? What am I doing? Yeah, and but I knew I had to go there, Liam, because Coventry City had sold me. Yeah, I had no choice in the matter. Yeah, so no matter what I thought about beforehand, all my impressions would be once I got there. Yeah, so I didn't have any impressions going there. It was all going to be afterwards. So getting to the football ground, yeah, having a walk around the football ground, you know, obviously the size of it was one of the biggest things, because at Coventry City we had a small compact ground. You know, we weren't used to big gates. So coming and stepping out into Villa Park, it made me realise, well, crikey, there's going to be a few people in this ground if it fills up. So from that point of view, no, it was going to be, it was another adventure. You know, the first adventure started when I was 15 at Coventry City. Now this was a new adventure because I'm now joining a set of new players. And, you know, you're always thinking, I think the first thought, you know, for a few days, I'm just thinking to myself, well, you know, how am I going to fit into this team? Yeah, because I don't know how Coventry City, I don't know how Aston Villa play, but I've been playing in the Coventry side now. I've played over 200 games by now in the first team, but I've got no idea what kind of team I'm going into at Aston Villa. But obviously, you know, you talk to the manager, he settles you down, he gives you a little bit of info of why he's bought you. Yeah, you know, he'll say, you know, you're part of what I want for this team. You're the type of player that I want to get success. So, you know, you get all that type of talk, and really you just think to yourself, well, just let me get on the football field. That's all I want to do. Yeah, and get training. You know, I'm having a day off now from training, so I'm disappointed. But in one way, I'm sort of supposed happy because I'm now moving to Aston Villa, where in hindsight, probably it was going to be where I was going to find a success that I wanted, as against being at Coventry City. Yeah, because, you know, having been at Coventry for quite a while, and, you know, having really struggled as a club, you know, from the point of view of competing with the big guys, but always, you know, just managing to keep their head above water in the first division. You know, I just looked at what was at Aston Villa and just thought to myself, well, maybe this is where it's all going to happen.
And your determination to train and become better in terms of your physicality and your fitness, sure, that definitely, highlights for me the fact that you were such a perfect fit for Ron Saunders' team, who, don't get me wrong, were talented with a football, but also were a very fit side.
Liam, I always like to dispel that about sort of Ron Saunders being a hard taskmaster and turning us into a very fit team. I think naturally we were fit players. I was a naturally fit player. I always felt to myself, as a Forrest Gump, always running. And as a kid, I was always running. Yeah, wherever I went, I always ran. So I was sort of building up this sort of this resilience, really. Be able to sort of keep going. But we had 3 or 4 players in the side when I joined who I realised were very, very fit and strong players. But I think that just came from the fact that they were just naturally fit, and I felt the same way. I felt when I came over to Villa that I trained a lot easier at Villa than I trained at Coventry City. And let me explain that a little bit. I felt at Coventry we probably did a lot more training without the ball. So when you do it without the ball, that usually means that you're doing a lot of running. Yeah. But at Villa, I felt it was the other way around. I felt that we did a lot of work with the ball, which was great because that was what the game was all about. And I think that's where we got our sort of our system and our understanding as players, is that, we wanted to be a team that played the game on the floor and get the ball down, pass through teams, pass through ranks of players and get after them and do it quickly. And that's the kind of side we were. But we trained that way, Liam. It was important to train the same way. And that's what we did,
So from this discussion, what I'm seeing then is the fact that it wasn't necessarily Ron Saunders was fully focused on creating the fittest team possible, but in terms of Aston Villa specifically, it was about changing the philosophy there and matching other top tier clubs within English football.
Well, I think Ron, I mean, if you ask Ron if he had a philosophy, I don't think he would probably give you one. Yeah. His biggest philosophy was this: just give me 100%. Yeah. Now, what you determine by that and what you interpret by that, Liam, is that the fact that, he wanted you to put in that little bit of extra effort every game. And with that extra effort, which you can't do, you can't put anything more than 100% in. Yeah. Because you can put 100% in and effort and be rubbish. You can put 100% in, but play well. And that was always determined sometimes by the opposition. But what Ron wanted from us more than anything else was just to be consistent in our play. And what he did, you got to remember, Liam, is that he put a team together. And the team now had to sort of gel around the way those players were put in the team. So the way the midfield was set up in a way to link quickly with the front players. Yeah. And also link with the back players from the point of view of the defensive duties. And what we had was we had players who were willing to do the fetching and carrying, yeah, but and not be afraid of it. And I think that was why when we did our training sessions, that was all part of a game. No one stood still. Yeah, we were on the move all the time. So Ron's philosophy really was about give me that effort, give me that consistency, yeah, and we'll get results.
And in terms of Ron Saunders being his philosophy, and he said that it was minimal and he just wanted 100% effort from you. But from previous conversations I've had with Brian Little, who, of course, constructed that Villa team to go on and win the League Cup, he said that he based his team around the Ron Saunders team, and how he brought in players like Paul McGrath to replicate the Ken McNaughts, and he brought in midfielders to replicate yourself, and he just tried to match the team that he was around under Ron Saunders with his team that went on to win the League Cup. So surely he maybe wasn't a Pep Guardiola and such a tactician, but there were certain elements of his game that, in fairness, he was. Could you argue that he was a pioneer in certain ways?
Well, I think you could. Yeah, but in those days, the emphasis wasn't on so much about, sort of styles of play. We didn't have this analysis sort of overload now, yeah, that you get now of every team now plays a different formation. But when you look at it most of the time, it's probably 4-4-1-1 or 4-4-2. It's very similar to what we played. Now, some people think we played a 4-3-3 when we won the league, and Tony Morley was actually a front player. But the way we played was very similar, Liam, to Liverpool. If you check the Liverpool side out, is what they had. Is that they had three central midfield. They had a back four, and then they had three central midfield players. Our three central midfield players were Des Bremner, myself in the middle, and Gordon Cowans, right? And then we had Tony Morley on the left-hand side, who stayed out wide. Now, Des didn't play right wing. Des played alongside me. So Des was a, fat 10 or 15 yards but to the side of me, but he wasn't out wide. We left that part of the pitch for Kenny Swain to overlap. So there was a reason for that, was to let Kenny come into those spaces and make up an extra player. So if we went forward now, there could be a chance that we had five in midfield, because Kenny has moved up now, level with the midfield grouping. The two centre backs and the left back, which would have been Colin Gibson or Gary Williams, would have just stayed and remained in position. So what we've done now is we've gone from a three in midfield, i.e. Des, me and Gordon, linked with Tony, but also linked with Kenny Swain. And then what you've got up front then is Peter With and Gary Shaw, right? So our formation was exactly the same as Liverpool, but the difference with Liverpool's is that they had Jimmy Case playing on the right wing, or Sammy Lee, and the left wing was left empty for Alan Kennedy to make, sort of forward runs exactly like Kenny Swain. So in a way, we were an image of Liverpool. So, if you want to look at it that way, you could say that was what Ron worked on, was the same as what Liverpool had. Because if you look at the front two players in Johnson and in Kenny Dalglish, they played exactly the way Gary Shaw and Peter With played. One coming deep, one staying long. And it's exactly the same as the way they did. So our system was very similar. And when you look at the players and the way we move, you see, we had Des Bremner, who played on the right-hand side. Liverpool had Terry McDermott on the right side of me, And Terry McDermott liked to get forward, and get beyond the back players to cause them problems. If Des didn't go, I would go. So there was an understanding that if we're going to break defenses down, what we needed to do was get our midfield players, two or three of us, going beyond their back four, and causing them problems that way. You stretched them, and that was the whole thing about our game, was about trying to stretch teams, open gaps up, get players like Gary Shaw on the board and Tony Morley, and take people on and make opportunities now to create goals. So if we're going to look at copying maybe anything, it would have been that Liverpool side, Liam.
So do you fully believe that the reasons for your successes of winning the European Cup in 1982 and winning the league in 1980 to 81, do you believe that the reasons that you just explained right now are why you were so successful? You copying that Liverpool side and putting 100% work ethic in and utilising the skillful players on the wings. Was that really, all in all, does that really determine your success, or is it a bit more than that?
I think it's obviously a bit more than that. It's a bit deeper, but to try to explain that, Liam, is sometimes very difficult, because what you're looking at now is a team, 11 players on the pitch, and what you're looking for now is that consistency that you get. Now, when I talk about intense, in training, the games were intense, but when I talk about intense, I don't mean, I mean from the point of view of having the ball, not without the ball. So what we had was, and I said earlier on, we trained in what we called our 8-a-side games across the pitch. We trained the way we played on a Saturday or a Wednesday. You couldn't do it any other way. You could not just sort of take the training session easy. You had to put everything into it, because you can't just press a switch and think that your body's now going to react to playing a really hard, tough 90-minute game. You had to put it in training, So from that point of view, yeah, our training sessions were all about playing our game of football, taking it from the training field and putting it onto the bigger pitch. Now, when you get on the bigger pitch, you've got more space to cover. Yeah, you've got probably more space to pass the ball. So from the point of view of playing off a pitch where it's pretty tight, yeah, and everything's got to be done quick because players are on top of you. Now you've got an opportunity to really open things up and use the bigger pitch, and that's what we were capable of doing. I think we had just such good footballers on the ground. Yeah, which is what you need. If you look at the Premier League now, the football on the ground is fantastic. I mean, and that's what you need. You need good football on the ground because if you're going to beat players, and beat tight defenses, the football on the ground is going to get you into positions where you can score goals. Yeah, and what we had was what Ron had put together was a really, really good 11 players plus the subs. Because if you remember in the championship year, we only used 14 players throughout the season.
Wow.
Which is unheard of really in football. So throughout that season now, there were 7 of us who played every game. Now it's very rare that you'd find in today's football where you'd find that at least 7 players in the team have actually played every game. Yeah, throughout the season. Well, we did that, which was quite an accolade really from our point of view. And some people would probably think, well, that's because you were really fit. We were really fit, but we were also resilient. So you might have a little knock, but you were good to recover from it quickly, and you'd be able to get back out and still give that 100% that was necessary to play. So that was one of the things really that in that championship year, I think, which did well for us and did really good for us, because we very rarely had to change our team. If we had to change a player, it would normally be maybe just one in every game. There was never maybe 2 or 3, who would have to come in and take the places of those going out. So I think from that point of view, I really feel that was also a big plus in the championship year. Because if I go back to 76, 77, when we were successful winning the League Cup with the team that Brian played in and Andy Gray, yeah, again in that season we had a real consistency in the team. If you look at that, there's probably a lot of the players played a lot of the games, yeah, and we very rarely had to change them. And I think that was being able to do that. I think in those days was going to give you that opportunity to really get consistency. I think now when you find, you look at a game today now, and you look at teams when they're having to make lots of changes for the sake of making them. I think sometimes you lose the ability to keep that consistency, because sometimes the players you're bringing in are not quite up to the standard of the ones that are going out. But I think in today's game, it's especially if you're playing in Europe, you're playing a lot more games. And so you need to rest players to give them a bit of a break. Otherwise, they might break down anyway. But sometimes you're not putting that same player in, and just having maybe one player out of place, out of position, it could mean all the difference between your system working. So our system worked really well, and Ron got us into that system, yeah. And it was, I can tell from the 76, 77 team that we needed to get a similar system now if we were going to be successful. And we'd lost that in those years of 77, 78, 78, 79. 79, 80, we didn't quite get that system right, but then Ron got it right in 80, 81, and now that sort of gave us the opportunity to really sort of show what we were capable of.
And you look at Liverpool this season as well with their defensive woes, and they've had Van Dijk, they've had Matip, they've had Gomez all out, and they had to bring new defenders in, and it's about letting them have time to really adapt to the system, and they haven't really got that time in order to secure a top 4 place or potentially challenge for the league, which unfortunately I don't think they will. So if you look, because I think for this episode, really, it's really interesting seeing the drastic changes from training methods during your day and training methods now really in the Premier League. So I want to highlight one specific example, Jamie Vardy, who's a great goal scorer, very clinical in front of goal, but from accounts from certain players and from insight from himself, he personally said that he doesn't necessarily train to his best ability in training matches and in training, but then on a weekend or a weekday during matches in the Premier League or the Champions League or Europa League, he goes out and he scores multiple goals. So why do you think it is that we've had these drastic changes and approaches within training methods from your day to nowadays in the Premier League? Bear in mind that statistics are more apparent and training methods are really focusing on players' development and players' physicality to make sure that they are 100% fit and 100% right for games.
I think what you've got now, Liam, is you've got so many more sports scientists, analysts, and people working at professional football. We didn't have that, you know. I mean, the manager was our analysis, you know, and you know, we had one coach. So if you were looking at analysis, you'd be doing that yourself. But you know, we didn't go into like how much running we did in a game, how far we'd run, you know, and all those kind of things. But when you look at someone like Vardy, I could understand what he's doing now, because you see, once you get over the age of 30, you've got to remember now is that Jamie Vardy has been in the game of football a long time, and he's built up a lot of resilience, yeah. But his game is based on getting the ball over the top. Now, probably in his training sessions, probably the only time he ever gets an opportunity to make those kind of runs is if they have a practice match. Because if they're playing on smaller pitches, just having like what we call like a knockabout, a five-a-side or something, the only time he would ever replicate what he's going to do on Saturday would be an actual practice match. So probably in training, he's not doing that. So he's having to adapt to keep fit, yeah, by just doing other things, yeah. And then come match day, though, he's alive to what he's good at, yeah. So if you to look at Jamie Vardy and have a look at the running he does a lot of what you call sort of chasing across the pitch, trying to stop the ball being played across the pitch from the back players, yeah. But what he's always looking for as well is the ball over the top. So he really would come back and defend, because his work is done up the top. So he's conserving his energy by just remaining in that front line, and he's moving between the defenders. And because he's one man alone up the top, it's very difficult now for one defender just to pick him up, because if he goes and stands on a fullback, the centre halves now will be feeling themselves, well, I've got no one to mark. But all of a sudden now, Jamie Vardy moves off the full-back and goes in between the centre half and the full-back, who now picks him up. So it's very smart play. Yeah. So Jamie Vardy is one of those players. If he was in my team, I wouldn't want him training too hard. I'll give you an example of that. So when I left Aston Villa, I went to Brighton. I was 33, and I still had my legs. Yeah, I still had plenty in my tank. But when I went down to Brighton, I'd only signed for a year. Yeah. And in that year, I wasn't going to go down there and live and move the family. So what I did, I commuted, right? But I commuted on when we played at home, I commuted on a Thursday. Well, I went down Wednesday night. I did a light training session on the Thursday, a light session on Friday, played on the Saturday, and then I would come home. Yeah, because the next game for Brighton would be somewhere up north, you know, being so far south. So then what I would do then, I'd stay at home all week and I'd do my own training, right? And they were quite happy with that, because the manager, Chris Catlin, knew that I would look after myself. Yeah, I wasn't someone who now would just sort of just switch off and not do any kind of training at all. But I did it at my pace. Yeah, I did what I needed to do. Now, I played 38 games that season in the first team. I only missed 4 in the league through a slight calf strain, which was the first time I'd ever had a calf strain in my career. So I was 33 going on 34 there. And then the following year, I did the same, you know, when I moved over to Birmingham City. I did the same there. And when I went to Birmingham City, I played 38 games, something like that, you know. So I had 2 really good fit seasons without really putting a lot of effort in training wise, because I knew I didn't need it, and the coaches knew that I didn't need it. So I didn't want to leave my energies now, Liam, on the training pitch. I wanted to keep all my energies now for the pitch on a Saturday. So that was my thinking, and I always felt that, you know, should I ever get into management and I'm working with older players, one of the things I would always do, I would give them more time off, because especially if they've had a good career. So if a player came to me in his later years and he's played maybe 500, 600 games in that time, I know now that he's been a good pro. Yeah. And that's maybe what Jamie Vardy does. It's, you know, the manager's saying to him, look, you do what you need to do to keep yourself fit. But what we need from you now is just what he knows, Jamie Vardy, is that when he goes out on the football field on a Saturday and a Wednesday, Liam, he knows that his job is to get behind the defence, and he's an intelligent guy, and he knows how to do that. You see, so that could explain what Vardy does. He doesn't need, and a lot of players would be the same when they get a bit older. You don't need that excessive training, those training sessions. You know, I mean, the big story about Paul McGrath is that he very rarely trained at Villa with the Villa team because he had dodgy knees, right? So Paul then would go out on Saturday and be man of the match every game. How do you do that? How does that happen? If you're not training, but you can go out. So obviously from his growing up in the games he's played, he's built up a certain resilience, a certain understanding, experience, and he uses experience now to manage the game. But you know, there's players like that who might have to be managed more because of their maybe slight knocks they have. Yeah. But we get you through it, and then you just rest and recuperate. But as I say, with today's sports scientists and all that, they're monitoring that all the time. Yeah. So the players have a lot more information coming to them about what their body is doing and how it's feeling. And we just had a manager and a coach, and that was it. And ourselves, that was it.
When you won the league in 80 to 81, did you believe that you had the capabilities as a squad to go on and win the European Cup?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to feel that way, Liam. You know, I mean, when you look at Nottingham Forest and what they'd done, yeah, when they came up into the first division and they won the first division and then won the European Cup, you know, and you look at what Brian Clough put together there, you know, and you just look at the players they had and you think to yourself, crikey, you know, if a team like that can come in and win it just out of nowhere, then a team like Villa, who've been there now for 10 years, you know, been in the first division now since 1975, you know, there must be a chance for us somewhere along the line. But you'd always believe, Liam, you know, you start every season, you're always hoping that you might get to the FA Cup final, you might get to the League Cup final. But the big prize, obviously, is winning the league. And that was our big prize, yeah, to win the league, which then gave us the opportunity to now go and play in the European Cup. Yeah. Now, when you look at when we get into the European Cup season now, yeah, our league sort of performances we're always up to the same standard as what we'd done the season before, right? So we weren't reaching those heights in the league as we should have been doing, yeah, just to, you know, to keep ourselves really in from the point of view of getting consistency. But what we got then when we played in the European games is that we had a little bit of a lift now, because this was the big tournament. And, you know, at the end of every season, I used to think to myself, when I'd watch the European Cup final, I'd see, you know, the captain picking that trophy up and the joy and everything. But what I think determined was a more determinant for us was the fact is that if you go back to the season before 80-81, a lot of people's favourites really were Ipswich Town. You know, along the way, we were always being said, it was always, you know, there was always little digs at us saying that, you know, we're going to run out of steam and we're not going to be able to sort of stay the course and everything. But we did. And so there were a few doubters about, you know, our pedigree really, yeah, in winning the league. There were a lot of people who probably felt that the Ipswich side at the time with Bobby Robson, yeah, should have won it, yeah, but they didn't win it because we won more games than them, Yeah, and that's what counts more than anything else, and we got more points. So I think from a lot of point of views, I think we as a team felt, well, let's deep down, without saying it, I reckon a lot of the lads were thinking to themselves, we need to go out here and show them that what we did last season, winning the league, now we've got a chance to win the European Cup. Let's go out and show them that we were good enough. And I think that was an inner strength really that we developed as players. Is that was to think back to the season before and think to ourselves, well, we were good enough to have won the league. We were the best team in the league. Yeah. Let's go and show everybody now that we can win the European Cup.
Waiting to go onto the pitch during that final, before kickoff, and just, I don't know, what were the predominant emotions again with inside you? Because like you said, you've watched the European Cup final year after year after year, and you were wanting so badly to lift that trophy as a captain for your team. So bear in mind, this is such a historic event for Aston Villa as well as yourself. Were you nervous? Were you excited? What were the emotions like?
Well, before most games, you're always nervous. Whatever game you played, you always.
But this is the European Cup final, though.
I know, absolutely. Yeah, this is the massive one, right? But I think what we tried to be was as relaxed as possible. Yeah, and not, if you were to be in our camp during those days leading up to it, you would have found a group of players who were very relaxed. Yeah, and probably felt that the hardest bit had been done. And that was getting to the final. Those tough games we'd had, against Dynamo Berlin and Dynamo Kiev and then Anderlecht in the semi-final, there's a lot of emotion going into those as well. And the fact that we're now in the final, you probably think to yourself now, well, we're in this great final. This is the last one for us. We've got to make this happen. But I felt the overall atmosphere with the players was that we were very, very relaxed. And and keen to get out there and again get on a football pitch and prove to everybody that we can win this trophy. And so at the end of it now, we sort of justify what we did the season before, is how we all felt. But there's plenty of nerves, yeah. And going out into that game, it was quite interesting because after 10 minutes we lost Jimmy Rimmer.
Yes,
he had to come off, because he'd done something to his neck. Now, as far as we were concerned, me being captain of the side, I had no idea that there was a problem with Jimmy. Tony Barton hadn't relayed that to me, and I don't know whether he relayed it to anybody else. But I certainly wasn't aware of Jimmy having a problem. Yeah, and I couldn't see on the pitch when we'd started that there was anything untoward to why Jimmy would have now been wanting to go off the pitch. But obviously, from his point of view, he'd obviously injured his neck and he wasn't feeling comfortable. And so, after 10 minutes now, we've got Nigel Spink coming onto the team, who really hasn't had a game for us. Yeah. And what a big game for him. How do you think he felt? Yeah. But I think what helped him, more than anything else, Liam, was that he didn't know either. He wasn't told that, you could be on after 5 minutes because Jimmy's got a bad neck. Yeah. And I think that probably helped Nigel, because Nigel had to come in now into that cauldron of the European Cup final. And he had to get straight into it. And very early on, he had to make a really good save down to his right or his left, which gave him that little bit of confidence. And it just grew and grew and grew. And you could probably say that Nigel was one of the players of the game. The fact that he's come on as sub, he's had to handle some of the best players in the world, in Rummenigge and Breitner and all that coming at him, Unis, up front, and he's done tremendously well from the point of view that he's been called up 10 minutes into the game and put a performance on like that. So probably the fact that he didn't know about it was also good for him, I would imagine. So he wouldn't have been nervous, thinking that I'm going to be going on sometime. Sitting on the bench worrying about it. He was straight into it. But the rest of us, we were on the pitch. This was our great opportunity. This is the biggest club game in the world, Liam. Yeah, club game. Yeah. So with previous year we've won the First Division Championship, which is the biggest competition in Britain, in England, to win. Now this is the biggest one in Europe. Yeah. So these are the two biggest, to me, these are the two biggest prizes that we could ever win, as a team, as a club team. And so, we get out there and, in all honesty, the game was tough for us. We found it difficult to play the game we normally play. And that was when I look at it and reflect back on it. The way the Germans, the way Bayern played, they played very deep as a back three, back two, back three, whatever they were playing. And they made it difficult for us to get forward. Myself and Des and Kenny Swain, we all like to get forward and get beyond defenders, but they played so deep that it made it quite difficult. So tactically, they were nullifying what we were good at. And although there was spaces now to play the ball into feet and everything, we very rarely got behind their defence. And if we were going to get a goal, it probably would have come from something like that. And that one attack that we had where Tony Morley got behind the fullback and crossed it, and Peter Weir put it in the back of the net. If you to look at the game, that might have been, there were very few times where we got behind their back players to be able to pull balls back or cross them, to cause them a problem. So they'd done a good job on doing their own work on how we played and how we were, what our best way of playing was. And I just found that we never really got a chance to show, in that game, what we were really capable of from the really exciting football that we knew we could play because of the way they played. So it was an interesting tactical game, but we got the one goal, Liam. And, in football, you only need one, to win the game. And that was the one that we got. And so, it was glory, 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 hallelujah. We've won the European Cup, and it's just the feeling after that. Then is that it's one that sometimes you've won it, you get the trophy and all that, and you're smiling and happy and everything like that. But it's later on when it really sort of hits you. A day or two later when you realise, what a tremendous effort you've done in coming away with winning the European Cup. And for the Villa fans who'd lived for many, many years without success, in 2 seasons, they've seen it all. Yep. And, that must have been for them who've been supporting Villa now through the 3rd division, the 2nd division, into the 1st division now, waiting for a big prize. Yeah. They got 2 in 2 years.
For you personally, were there any family members in attendance that day, and did you look at them and communicate with them in a certain way?
No, my wife was there. All the wives were there, but no, none of my family were there. No, they were at home watching it on the television. You got to remember, all my family were Liverpool fans. Yeah, so they would have been expecting Liverpool to be in the final. Yeah, but it wasn't. It was us. But there were a few Scousers on the field anyway. Yeah, so we were represented on the football field. But no, they were all at home, and I think my mum was sort of. She would have been out in the kitchen not watching it. She wouldn't have been able to sort of watch the game, and she would have been concerned. I know she came to a few games in my early days at Coventry, but she couldn't stand what was going on the football field, because she was always concerned about you going down on the floor and and worried that you're going to get injured or something like that. So, but my dad and a few of my brothers, they would come at occasional games when I was playing, but but they weren't in Rotterdam.
You left Aston Villa in 1985, and of course you had many successes there with the league and the European Cup. But do you believe that Villa could have gone on to win even more trophies during those last few seasons, or do you believe that was the pinnacle and it was all not necessarily down from there, but that was the furthest you could really go to? No,
I think it's always a difficult one to analyse, that one, Liam. From when I talk to my teammates, Tony Morley, Ken McNaught, Gary Shaw, and Gordon and Kenny Swain. When you talk to them, we're all of the same opinion. Yeah, the team was broken up too quickly. So the following year now we were obviously champions. So we played in the European Cup again. And in that year, we got to the quarterfinal. We were knocked out by Juventus. Yeah. So up to that point, you know, the league season was going okay. It wasn't brilliant again, but you know, we weren't pushing and being in a position where we should have been. But most of us felt that if we'd have had another season, yeah, and we were well capable of another season, Liam, because you know the ones that left all went on to play, yeah, full seasons for another 3 or 4, yeah. In my case, I played another 2 seasons, yeah. Kenny Swain went and played and was the star man at Nottingham Forest for 2 seasons when he went there. Ken McNaught and Tony Morley ended up at West Brom. You know, so you know, so there was. Des Bremner moved as well. Des moved over the same year when I left the team. Des moved over to Birmingham City. But we had so much left, Liam, yeah? And we had so much more, I felt, than the players who were going to replace us, yeah? But the big thing about it is that we were Villa players. You know, you've always got to be careful when you bring players from other places, yeah? Because if you're bringing them from another place, you know, they've got to now buy into what Aston Villa is all about. But sometimes they don't want to, because maybe their agenda is not to stay too long, but just to use it as a stepping stone to get somewhere else, you know. And, you know, I just felt that getting rid of that real close-knit understanding that we had, yeah, was detrimental to us going on and becoming that, because I think there was too many changes in one go, right? Where it could have been like, if you look at the Liverpool side of their success, they would always bring in a couple of players every season, yeah, just to add to the squad, but didn't mean to say that they were replacing anybody, yeah. They had to fight the way, yeah. Now, you know, we had some really good young players coming through now. Mark Walters, yeah, we're starting to come through. So when you look at those players, if Tony Barton had kept hold of us, yeah, with our experience and with the young players coming through, the good ones that were coming through, we could have, I felt, reached those heights again. Certainly in the league, yeah. Certainly in the league, you know, whether the European Cup would have been another opportunity to go to the final, I don't know. But certainly in the league, I think there could have been more present. And now getting into Europe then would have been something that we could have done every season, you know, and been playing in Europe. So, you know, I did feel that really we did break up too quickly. But, you know, if you really want to analyze it deeply, you'd have to get all the people together who was involved at the time and just put your heads together and say, well, you know, what could Tony Barton have done different? But his big problem was that at the time now we changed chairman, but yes, that's another story.
I think the important thing is for Villa fans of nowadays and the day back then, and yourself and your teammates, is looking back on these successes. And you've been part of constructing a book, writing this book to commemorate the league success in 80 to 81. So do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, Liam, thank you for that. Yeah, good segue. Yeah. For anyone who hasn't seen this book, yeah, this is the 40th anniversary tribute book that we brought out. And what this book does, and it's quite unique in a way, is that it just follows the season, Liam. And if you look at the first page here now, our first game was Leeds United that season. So what the book does, it follows every game through there. And there's a little bit of a write-up of the game. And then there's plenty of nice little shots of the shirt and ticket stubs and everything like that. So it's a really well put together program. And if anyone's interested in that, yeah, the place to go is info, INFO, at AV40 Tribute, all one, AV40 Tribute, all in lowercase, .com. Yeah. And that's where you'll get this book, right? And you can only get this on. You can only get this from that address because it's not on sale in the Villa shop. Yeah. So this is now something that we as a team have produced. Yeah. To commemorate the 40th. And the idea of that, Liam, and it's because of COVID we've not been able to do it. The idea of this book really was to get out and do lots of Q&As and use the book as a script. Yeah, so that we could all those supporters who were there with us in 81, yeah, and before that, leading up to it, all those supporters now could really celebrate 40 years ago again, and we would reminisce with them, and what we had, we'd obviously use that book as a script, yeah, so that we'd follow it, and we'd go out at different times, we'd pick up different games, and what we've done as well is we've got all the goals on video.
Oh, wow.
All the goals from the games, yeah, and we've got them all on video, and they were going to be shown, obviously, as part of our Q&A, you know. So we've really put something together, yeah, a really nice package, you know, for the fans to come and join us. So our hope now is that come next season, and we're back to normal, we now go into the 40 years of winning the European Cup. So we're going to combine the two, really, yeah. So what we would have liked to have done is actually have a big get together for the fans, and I've put some kind of tribute dinner on in May, yeah, when we won the trophy. We're not going to be able to do that this year. So what we'll hopefully do, and hopefully the following year in May 2022, yeah, we'll be able to put on a dinner which will commemorate both winning the league and winning the European Cup. Yeah. And that's our plans. That's our plans, you know. And for the fans who partook in that, you know, were there watching us play, you know, it'd be great for all of us to get back together again and really reminisce and enjoy, you know, you could say the greatest 2 seasons that Aston Villa have ever had. Yeah. Up to now.
I keep being too caught up by all my